Guys, welcome to another wonderful education swear-filled. I haven't really been swearing that much, so it kind of lost that edge. But wonderful episode of I don't know, where are we at now? 160, 156 episodes. Yeah.
That's impressive, guys.
We hit 25,000 downloads a couple weeks ago, so I don't think we've mentioned that on the show.
And that voice you might recognize in the background if you're an avid listener of the show. If you're new to the show, that voice in the background is with Bruce Rosard, or is it Rosard? Is it Regal Rosard? How is it?
It depends. I'll take it however you want to say.
In Europe, you're in Rosard.
Rosard is the French version. My father was born in Paris, so there's that. Yeah,
Rosard. If you're in America, if you're
Rosard,
Rosard.
Let's move past this. You guys
edit. No, we're not editing any of this. This is the magic that is the Awkward Watersports Guys. Like,
Bruce
it's a fun.
Let's not talk about my last name anymore.
A fun filled up.
Man.
But this is the meat. How the hell do you say Bruce's last name? Bruce is the co-founder. Are you the COO, the COO? What's your actual title?
The title is Chief Commercial Officer, because if you're going to do business with Arival, usually I'm going to be the person you're working with, basically.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I know. I've done business with Arival. I know that.
It's always
tough-nosed, hard business guy. It has. And this is, what year of Arival are you guys on now? 6?
Well, we started in 2017, so I think that means 8 years, right? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 8 years. 2 of them online, right? So 6 years of in-person conferences, plus all the research that we do, and et cetera.
Yeah, and just to give new listeners a little bit of what Arival is, we're not going to do the whole background thing, but if you had to sum it up in a paragraph or two, what exactly is Arival?
Well, number one, what a lot of people don't know is we're the leading research authority for tours, activities, attractions, otherwise known as in-destination experiences in the world. We're really the only company in the world that does research for the sector. This sector that we've measured at $280 billion globally. So it's a big sector. And we made up that number of $280 billion is the market size. So that's how big it is. We know that. And then, of course, we do conferences. We started with our first conference in 2017, and we do conferences in the U.S., Europe, and Asia.
Yeah. And you guys, and then a lot of it is... And you correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of it is sort of like in the tech sector, right? Like travel tech, and that's a big piece of what you guys do.
Well,
as far as content,
we cover travel tech, but we're not a travel tech conference. As you know, we're a conference specifically for in-destination experiences. The entire segment from, a water boat operator that's a small, they have 5 jet skis, would be an appropriate person potentially to come if they're looking to really grow their business, all the way up to Disney World, right? I mean, that's a pretty big segment, but and that's one of our biggest challenges is really identifying, who are we targeting? Because we want to target the smaller companies, but the ones that really want to grow. There's a lot of micro companies out there, and it's more of a weekend hobby. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense for them to invest as much in coming to an Arival event. But the smaller companies, maybe they only have 1 or 2 boats right now that they take out for charters, but they want 5 or 10. They're going to learn how to do that by coming to an event like Arival, going to all the sessions, meeting with the other people that are in their space or other spaces. So
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that because I think some of the weekend warriors, man, even if you don't want to scale, I think it's really important that you stay involved, because just out of the serendipitous nature of the event and the networks, you end up coming across a guy like myself or Greg, and not just to scale, but if you want to continue to do it even as a weekend side hustle, I think it's worth to put the dollars into it, because there might be 10 different things that you are potentially missing out on that could, in our line of work. People's lives are at risk, and liability, and all the stuff that goes into our side and our partnership with Arival. That's not just about scalability, but sustainability. And I think if you have one jet ski that you're running out, or one boat that you're running out, and you're just only operating on boat setter, I firmly believe that you pony up and spend the money, buy the plane ticket, get the room, because the jet skis, I mean, are $15,000, an intro pontoon boat, $35,000 or $40,000, and I think it's a small price to pay to get, especially when you're just getting started.
I was trying to segment a little bit, but you're right, Kevin, of course. And, people tell me all the time, well, it costs a lot to come to an Arival event. Let's call it $1,000 registration, 3 nights hotel, airfare. When you're said and done, $3,000-$4,000. And depending on the size of your business, that's a big investment. Plus, a week, 4 days out of the office. So, the tours or whatever that I might not sell. And I always think ROI. I mean, don't do something that doesn't deliver a return on that investment. You tell me, but I think one good partnership, one good relationship, one good connection can deliver a $5,000 ROI right away, right? Like if I'm in water sports and I meet one of you at the event, whatever it is we're talking about, but I, meet you and you share your wisdom and you both have a lot of it. And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I mean, it's true, right? Mm-hmm. And just by spending 15, 20 minutes with you with some questions, you ask me about my business, I'm going to learn enough that is likely worth $5,000 to my business, right? I firmly believe that.
And it could be one good idea too. For me, it's there's countless ideas that I brought back that I've implemented that have driven hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And if I wasn't at Arival, I wasn't hearing about the trends and, the opportunities, I never would have known. And I feel like that peer-to-peer learning is one of the most important aspects because everyone's really busy. And Kevin and I know this because we both sell software. We're constantly battling with reaching decision makers and getting their undivided attention, where when you go to a conference, you get the undivided attention of, big players in the industry. They're there to talk to you. They're there to learn just as much, and you can go up to pretty much anybody. I don't think anybody that goes there is too good to talk to, a new operator, at least from my experience.
No, I mean, I remember a party at our last event, and I was hanging out talking to Ben Drew, who at the time was the president of Viator. And sure, I know him well, and I'm in a different position. But, some operator just came up and said, "Hey, Ben," and just started talking to him, even though I would say they're talking to him. Ben was like happy to spend time talking to an operator that he probably didn't know. And, and that's just, we were at a party. And that is the typical. And people think, well, with Zoom now and I can call everybody, is it really worth it? But there is nothing like being in person, meeting that person, having some more time than just, I'm not trying to pitch anything. Let's just talk and learn. I remember hearing a podcast, I'm pretty sure, Greg, where you said at one of your first Arival, you met someone who talked to you about self-insurance. Did I hear that on that
podcast? Was like either I think the first or second Arival, 2018 or 2019. Someone went to Arival selling a refund protection service, which once I dissected their program, I realized that we can actually implement ourselves. And that turned into trip protection, which Kevin and I basically proliferated that throughout our network and our show. And now I would say most listeners have implemented that and made a lot of money.
Right.
So
that all came out of one conversation you had at an Arival.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. That all was birthed from Arival that has now been implemented by hundreds, if not thousands of operators. I mean, I even see other res techs implementing that same option. So yeah.
I credit, I mean, I it's done so much for me. And because I also too look at things from like a pretty like a connected viewpoint, right? I'm like, man, so this sparked this sparked that, this maybe I'm using the wrong word. I'm using a competing conference.
That's not a competing.
Not spark. I didn't mean spark. No, I'm kidding. But it put me in place to have this conversation, and this put me in this room, and then this gave this idea, and then we brought people, and then it's like very directly as well, not just it's interconnected in a very direct way. Insofar as when I come to Arival, Bruce, you're like one of the first people to be out there constantly working, connecting people, right? Like, hey, Kevin, come over here and meet Ryan O'Grady from PhotoFlow. I just remember you sort of being out in the hallways, like literally just grabbing people and putting them together. Like, this makes sense. I think this relationship would make sense for you guys. And I see that as such like for me, I call it like scrubbing the boat or fueling the boat. If you were like really being in the weeds, like anybody can kind of like put an event together and, create a Facebook group, but to actually be on the ground, putting people together. And from those conversations, from those relationships, I'm like, have a software company now. And like, I'm using or leveraging those relationships that I had that I had met people through Arival, that you had connected us, and now we're creating integrations for our software and creating all sorts of value adds because of the contacts that I have in that sector that I normally would not have. Now I can say, hey, do you have so-and-so's number? And yeah. Like, well, let me give you his contact. Let me make an introduction. And I don't think that people understand how important those kind of introductions are, because as Greg said earlier, and it's not even just, sales, or just like networking in general, like you're going to cold email your way to a relationship. Just doesn't happen like that.
Well, let's just take that one step further. And then I do want to go backwards also.
Sure.
Yesterday, I'm on the phone with the GM of Polaris Adventures. Polaris, Fortune 500 company, makes all kinds of active adventure sports machines, right? I'm not sure what they do.
Sea-Doo, and then jet skis.
I think
Polaris.
BRP.
Polaris.
Yeah, but right, but Sea-Doo is owned by Polaris, and so is Bennington.
They're
pontoons
huge in water and land. The Polaris Adventures is focused more on land. They're coming into the water now. And what Polaris Adventures is a network of outfitters, what we call operators, but they call them outfitters, all independent, that they lease equipment to, because the equipment's expensive, right? You just said how expensive a jet ski is. I mean, the land, whatever they call their land equipment, is $20,000-$30,000 per machine.
ATVs.
Yeah. So they lease the machines, they insure them, they give them a deal on different things to help them grow their business, but they're independent. And at the end of the conversation, I'm like, you know what? If they're getting into water sports more, I should introduce them to Greg and Kevin. So I sent an email and I introduced them to Greg and Kevin. And I don't know when you're going to have a call with them, but probably soon. And it's an example of a connection that I was able to help you make with what I think could be really great opportunity for you, and a great opportunity for them to meet you guys. Because I know you, I trust you. We built this partnership and this relationship, and I'm happy to connect you with what could be, with Polaris Adventures, which is I wouldn't want to introduce them to anybody.
And think about it. I know some people listening here are like, well, yeah, that's great. You guys are software companies and there's, greater return. But no, like if you can talk to Bruce as a single operator, and if you have a challenge or you're looking for something particular, maybe you need some advice on software, anything, like Bruce is the guy to connect you. And Bruce has never said, okay, well, you're too small, I'm not going to help you. That's just not the culture.
I dream of, I love my example. Actually, my friend Brennan from Propellic sent me a sign, because I always use the example, Bruce's Bicycle Tours of Boulder, Colorado. Like that's who I am in my head, is just Bruce's Bicycle Tours of Boulder with maybe 10 bikes. And I love to relate to that type of operator.
I'm sorry. I had to walk that back. For some reason, I know Polaris definitely owned Bennington boats, but you're right, Greg. They are owned by BRP, but I thought there was a connection to Polaris for some reason. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe they're resold. I don't know. Anyway, that's like a quick. I had to redact because I was like, wait a minute, that might be wrong.
Any connections you can make at events, great, but it goes beyond. The community goes beyond. Just like you guys have created a community for water sports operators, primarily in the Southeast U.S. But that community is super strong, and anyone can refer information to each other. This just takes it to a little bit bigger level, and it doesn't have to be all water sports, right? Mm-hmm. You can connect and learn just as much from other kind of operators as the water sports operators that are your community.
So, Bruce, let's just kind of dive into 2024 a little bit. So it's going to be in San Diego, September 30th to the 3rd. Since we're about halfway through, I don't want to wait too late to say this, but if you are an AWG listener, you get 15% off. And there is a promo code that is on our Facebook page. If you're on an email list, you'll receive it. And I will get that promo code and mention it on the show before we end. I don't know it because it's a bunch of letters. But yes, you're going to save some money, but make sure you book early because the price does go up the closer to the event. So anyways, Bruce, tell us a little bit about 2024. What's different? What are the trending topics that you'll be focusing a lot on compared to previous years?
Sure. I mean, AI maintains its position as the new thing that we have to be talking about. Some people I've heard, so I'm like, oh, there's so much AI. Yeah, but there's a reason for that, right? So we'll still have a lot of AI sessions, much, really practical, how to actually use it, because we have practitioners that are a part of our community that use it every day and that are making their business more effective and efficient. So we'll have that. As far as new, one thing we're doing is having some really in-depth 2-hour sessions, where typically our longest sessions are 45 minutes. For example, one is on water sports, and you guys are producing it, as but your audience doesn't. And because we're not co-hosting the Water Sports Forum at Arival this year, because we're in San Diego and not in Florida, we still think the market, the community of water sports is so important that we wanted to have a long session. And who else to run it than you guys? And we appreciate that. And I'd love to hear, maybe when I'm done with this little piece, how you see the differentiation and why someone might want to think about coming to the Water Sports Forum as well as Arival. I think that's right for a certain part of your community, maybe not the whole community. Other segments that we're doing with that is, how to get your business ready to sell. Because if you run a business, you should be thinking about how to sell that business. Not everyone does, but if you're thinking about it, we're going to have a whole, one of these 2-hour sessions on that. We're going to have a 2-hour session on how to scale your business. And actually, that's being run by good friends of yours and mine, Justin Buzzy at Get Up and Go Kayaking, and Kai Capro of Tour Scale, who have scaled their businesses really well. And we're going to have one other person join that session to really talk about scale. We're going to have a session all about strategic planning and how to start thinking about, all right, how do I outline 2025? What's my strategic plan instead of just the tactical? We're going to have a session that's going to be run by Polaris about outdoor adventures and what they see are the trends in outdoor, and how to really think about adventure travel just continues to grow. It started to really take off during the pandemic, and how to take advantage of that and diversify your business. If you're in, maybe you just do bike tours, and now you should do bike and ATV rentals or what have you, and really talk about that. And, a few other of those longer sessions. Culinary experiences are always part of it. Otherwise, in our theater, so you guys know we have like the big theater sessions. We haven't had Get Your Guide there in a while. So we have Tao coming from Get Your Guide. He's one of the co-founders. And I'm sure your listeners, hopefully they know who Get Your Guide is. If they don't, Get Your Guide is the second largest OTA for the sector for tours, activities, and attractions. If you work with OTAs like Trip Shock, for example, and hopefully you all do, you might also work with Viator, and you might want to look at what Get Your Guide is all about. So their co-founder, Tal, is running a session that Kevin would love because it's called How to Stand the Fuck Out. And he's literally we're going to probably put some asterisks in there, but had to spell that out for you, Kevin.
I'm glad you guys are getting on the swearing trend, which is, I feel like, starting to now like die off, man. You guys are late to the party on swearing. That's so 2021 and 2022. Now it's about high-minded business ideas again.
But Douglas sweared on stage once, and he actually got a negative review about it. Like, what?
I think it's crazy. I think when you pay a guy like what's his name, Gary V, like $250,000 to come on your stage, and like that's kind of what he's known for, right? It was dropping like the F-bomb in the business world. He's probably like the first to do it, but I wish Arival gets that big where you guys have like the fluff corner, just straight up motivation. Jocko Willink, Gary V.
Yeah, we talked about it. That's. Running events and deciding who the speakers are. That's
tough. I wanted to get into that a little bit because
let me finish a couple things.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I thought you wrapped it up.
Kyle is doing a session on how to stand the fuck out, which means to operators how you can stand out on a marketplace like a Viator or a Trip Shock or a Get Your Guide, and really make sure your product stands out. That's the point. Another one is a guy named Jason Horkins coming, who is with Netflix Experiences. And that's super interesting. Netflix is building a business around experiences. They're actually opening 2 locations in 2025, one outside Philly and one outside Dallas, that are going to be like 100,000 square foot buildings in big malls that were empty stores. And the experience is all about movies and shows that are on Netflix. So they're taking some of their best titles and turning them into experiences. I don't know exactly what those are going to be like yet, but we're going to learn about that.
You're going to go there and you get like a box with like a cassette tape in it, and they charge you like $7 and you leave. And then you bring it back and they charge you if you don't rewind it. Netflix is actually rebirthing the Blockbuster model.
I'm just going to tell you about one more speaker. Is this woman, Caroline Boone, who was on the founding team of Airbnb Experiences. So working directly with the founders of Airbnb when they said, let's do experiences. And she was there for 6, 7, 8 years, just left. And we all know how up and down Airbnb Experiences has been. Yeah. She's not coming to really talk about Airbnb Experiences too much. She now works at Disney. So she's got a very different role. And her role at Disney is actually in a different division. So she's more coming to talk about experiences in general. And she obviously has some great insights. So
I'd love to hear more about how and why Airbnb Experiences didn't work, being that they're a multi-billion-dollar company and they could not make it work. Like what,
yeah.
That'd be interesting to know. I'm sure I don't think she's going to be sharing that, but it'd be.
Well, we asked her, how much of this can you share? She could share more now that she doesn't work there.
Yeah.
But she said, and there's some things I can't. But I think her answer would likely be, it will work. They have a long, they have some plans.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to execute yet. And let's admit, I think a lot of us would say they haven't done a good job of execution.
No.
But they just experienced, Airbnb kind of experienced a downturn just in total revenue the last couple of years, did they not?
No.
I thought
not overall.
No. I don't pay attention.
Lodging, hospitality business continues to kill it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know why?
I'm wrong again.
It didn't work because they didn't spend enough money on Google, because that's really all OTAs do is just spend a bunch of money on Google. So they didn't spend enough money. They got to pay Google more. That's how they're going to make it work.
It didn't work because they didn't have the right product mix. They were too into their very, Airbnb kind of authentic product, and tourists
People just want the commoditized version of activities.
And they didn't want to sell
kayak rental. Yeah.
Right. They don't want to sell that, but they need to have both, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to kind of like to talk about what goes into event. Like I see a lot of event around different industries, and they usually, I would just assume that it's shit, right? If you got like a roofing expo and you have like David Goggins coming to talk about roofing or something like that, right? Like David Goggins is a motivational speaker. So when you see a lot of these smaller events, you kind of see like they gotta get like a main player, and then they surround that guy with a bunch of people in the industry, and that's just kind of so. Why none of that with Arival? Like, why did you guys consider that? Like, I want to go into the event, like just the event, like kind of what goes into it, like what your considerations were in the beginning. Was that something you guys thought about? Did you ever think about just getting like somebody out of the corporate world that was just like a big name?
Not really. We think our audience wants to hear the leaders of the industry.
Yeah, I agree.
And they don't need a rah inspirational speaker that's not relevant to the industry, right?
Yeah.
So from the beginning, we've always tried to get the Viators and Get Your Guides and Fair Harbors of the world to come up and talk about what's new and hot in the business. And it's really changed from 2017 when we started. Our most memorable sessions were with Viator the day or the first month or two after they had acquired Boken, and Fair Harbor had been acquired by Booking.com. I mean, that just created a big stir. And then we also had a session with 4 of the res techs together, basically trying to one up each other. And one of the operators got up and asked a really hard question and created some controversy there. I don't know if you guys were in the room there in Vegas in 2018.
Yep.
So that was going on in 2018 with those acquisitions, and there was a lot of upheaval between distributors and res techs. That's all kind of settled down. Now the big topics are, how do we optimize for Google? How do we get more direct business versus third party? But we still need OTAs, so we got to do both. Where does AI fit in? So it's just a matter of trying to identify what the key topics are that people care about. But here's the thing. We spend a shit ton of time trying to get the right speakers with the right topics to build the right program. But the fact is, and Kevin, you're one of them, many people don't even listen or pay attention to any of the content, and they spend all their time in meetings doing business because you decided you made an investment to come to an event, and you get the best ROI by being in meetings and meeting people, building partnerships, doing the stuff we were talking about 10 minutes ago. And it's not as important to you to sit in a seat and listen to the sessions that we do work really hard to put out there. So there's,
wow. Jeez, man, is this a shaming? Are you guilting me?
Not at all. No, I'm giving you credit that you make your decision of what you want to do when you get there. And, I've learned very early on when I started running events, you can't tell people what to do. Some people, there's an event that I went to, they had their big exhibit hall, and then they have their content. And when their keynote speaker's on, they close their exhibit hall. So anyone that paid to be an exhibitor, anyone that wants to do business with those exhibitors is not allowed to have a meeting because the keynote's on. Like, what the fuck? Seriously? Like, I just flew here. I spent my money. And, if I'm an exhibitor, I spent a lot of money, and you're going to tell me I have to go listen to content instead of do business?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you guys have so you mentioned earlier in the show, it's like, we have like a single owner operated business versus Disney execs coming in, and you have to serve all of these people and all of the people in between and your sponsors. I don't think people realize that, like, at the end of the day, like, if you're looking at this from the outside in, people think like, oh, well, like you're selling all these tickets, and it's just like any business, right? You're like, they're selling all these tickets, it just goes straight into your pocket, and you go home, and you guys did X amount in ticket sales, and you put that in your pocket and walk away. But I don't think a lot of people understand that the reality of it and all of this is there is you owe as much to your attendees as you do your sponsors, because you want to provide value for both. People don't get that. Like the sponsors are sponsoring for a reason. And that's a tricky set of balls to juggle, is to please all these people from the content side and then make sure that these connections are happening between, and that the sponsors are getting value for their sponsorship dollars too. Can you kind of talk to that a little bit as far as like, I mean,
I lived that world.
Right.
I
it's
lived that world.
really difficult.
That's my role, my title, Chief Commercial Officer. So I need to keep every sponsor happy. And so the biggest caveat, what you talked about, registration, attendees, sponsors, keeping them both happy. One of the key ways to do it, that again, I learned very early on in the first conference I ever worked with at Focusrite, is sponsors cannot pitch on stage. So if Trip Shock says, I want to be a sponsor, but I want to be up on the stage doing a keynote, the answer is no. Like, oh, but I'll give you $100,000. No. And not every conference is like that. A lot of conferences, they build a sponsorship package that includes speaking on stage. Yep. And you could tell that speaker, well, don't pitch. But, if I pay and part of what I pay for is stage time, then you better believe there's going to be some pitching going on, right? So we are super strict, as you guys know, about that you don't come on stage, I don't care what level sponsor you are, to pitch your company or your product. Unless we do have a few sponsored sessions we call demo labs. That's different because those are presented as sponsored content. But for our main content, there's none of that. So that changes the way we build our sponsorships compared to a lot of events, because that people always say, well, we want thought leadership, so we want to present a session, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you have thought leadership and you have a topic, we can talk about you presenting a session, but it can't tie to your sponsorship, and you can't pitch when you do that.
So, sorry, and it just, maybe it went over my head, but why is that caveat? So, I mean, obviously
because if you're an attendee, you're an attendee, and you're listening to a session, and you think the person talking to you is pitching, you think it sucks, and you're going to walk out the door. That's why. Like we want to make sure our attendees get great content.
I love the demo labs. Like I hate to be. I mean, maybe I just love being pitched.
No, the demo labs are fine.
Yeah.
You know, you're walking in. Maybe you're shopping for new res tech, or you're shopping for a new distribution partner, or whatever. And you know this demo lab is sponsored by WaveRes, and you're looking for res tech. Fine, then Greg can pitch WaveRes because he's paid us for that opportunity. We show his logo, sponsored by WaveRes. Everyone in that room knows they're walking into a WaveRes demo lab. That's different than coming to a session about how to optimize an SEO session, and the guy presenting that is talking about how his company is the best SEO company in the country, right? Versus here's how you do SEO.
Yeah, no, and Kevin, at the port, we have a very similar setup where our first day is more product pitches, demo labs, where our sponsors actually get to sell and talk about the benefits of using their service. I think if you're going into it knowing, and it's not forced, it's an optional thing, then I believe that, I like pitching. I want to learn about the new products. I'm interested in these services. I want to know more about them.
And I think that's why I do kind of like pitchy a little bit. I guess if it was like a timeshare, I'd probably be like, oh god, it's not something I want to hear about. But if there's like a new product or a new tool, and they have solved for X, Y, and Z problem, and maybe their product is, they can solve it for you, or maybe here's why your current solution doesn't work. I guess that's why, like, when you go like, the sponsored, when I do the sessions, and I'll say again, if you guys are going to, like, I've said this multiple times about Arival, like, my hearing's terrible. People will be, and it's so frustrating because people will be, especially at theater sessions, people are going like, ooh, and they're all like reacting. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that guy just said. I have no idea what's being said there, and why I maybe do like the demos, because in the demos it's smaller, I can hear better. Maybe you guys can get like the closed captions up there on the screen for me or something like.
Well, we're looking at translation options for Valencia because we have to, and the guy is talking about San Diego. And we don't need translation, but maybe for people who are hearing impaired, there is a solution there.
I just do it for me specifically. Sponsored by Kevin O'Neill.
I would do it for you specifically, Kevin. Come on.
Yeah. So I mean that is wholeheartedly why I stopped going to theater sessions, because I'd be like asking, I'd be like, well, what, like to the point of like, you're like, oh, they asked the hard OTA questions.
Even if you sit in the front row.
Oh God! And the front row is the worst, because then they like might pick you out and ask you a question or something. And I'm like, I don't want that. No. Yeah. Well, then you have questions coming from the back. It's a fucking challenge, man. No, but yeah. So at any rate, like back into the behind the scenes, behind the curtain stuff. So we got into that. There's also been like there's been criticism of Arival for attendees that have gone like 5-6 years in a row, and they kind of and like that's a challenge for you too, right? Because it is like, a lot of the sponsors are technology focused. It is a lot of reservation technology, a lot of OTAs, and a lot more. I'm not saying it's not just that, but from the criticism you've taken from past attendees, and you guys are all about data, what are some of the criticisms, and how do you address that? Being that you're having to, you know what I mean? Like, you do have to touch back on some of this stuff because you do have first time people coming for the first times. So, like, this seems like the most challenging aspect, to make all of these people happy and then make this other demographic happy of people that come every year that are like, yeah, give me something new.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's really hard to keep everybody happy. I mean, it's impossible, right?
Yeah, it is.
We usually get ballpark 50% first timers. So 50% repeat. And that doesn't mean that 50% of our attendees repeat because maybe they skip a year, because we go east-west each year. But there's a couple of answers, I think, to your question. One is I believe, have established Arival as like a must-do event for a lot of people in the industry. And it's part of that community. They just want to be there in the community. Part of it is they know that, it's great to continue a business relationship by at least seeing each other once or twice a year. And if they look at their schedule of events for the year, Arival's going to be on that must-do list. Doing content that keeps people coming back every year, it's a matter of knowing what's changing and what's hot. And sometimes it's not hot enough where it's like, oh, I have to do that for the content. But I don't think it's the content. The content is a little bit of kind of the sugar that brings people in, but it's the business relationships.
It's the people.
It's the people.
If you have to ask me what keeps me coming back, it's the people. It's the people. I would say people is like 70%, and then 20% is the content and programming. 10% is maybe the events, and
10% is the hot tub. We know that. Right.
And the event. But
what's the biggest topic that you've gotten flack for? So obviously you guys do all the surveys. What's the one where people are like, we don't want to talk about this anymore?
As far as content they want to talk about?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I don't know if I can give you an answer on that, honestly. I think
Greg knows where I could think Greg's the answer.
He wants you to say that they're sick of hearing about OTAs and res tech, but
no, actually not. That was not the one. So the one I always just anecdotally hear about, and it's again because I run in small circles of small operators.
Yeah.
I'm not the corporate, right? The DEI. So I've always heard kind of like, man, you know what I mean? Like we go in there and I feel like we get DEI'd to death. I didn't even know what DEI was until
DEI to death. I mean, the most we've ever had is 4 breakout sessions that were focused on DEI issues, which I do believe is important. And they were always when there was 3 or 4 other things to do at the same time. So that's interesting. We did specific DEI programming this year. We do have 2 sessions focused on empowering women in this industry. So I would not consider that DEI, but I certainly consider it, related. That's about as far as that topic's going.
I think DEI at the time was a trend. And Kevin, we actually did a show on DEI.
And the only reason I brought Barry on is because he had like a little bit of a different take on it that I didn't really anticipate him to have on. It
actually was my favorite episode. I learned a lot about DEI and the implementation from a business standpoint. It was great episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's a topic. Look, that's a political topic at this point. I couldn't say that there should be an issue with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are important things. Now, how does Arival fit into helping companies do that? The fact is, companies didn't show they cared as much. It's not that different than in Europe. The main topic similar is sustainability. And in Europe, we always have more sustainability issue topics than I don't know if we've had them in the US, maybe once or twice. And people want it. They want sustainability. It's so important. Over tourism is so important. I mean, we're all seeing water pistols in Barcelona, and we run the sessions. We have great presenters, and we get 20 people. So, it's like if this topic is not how do I grow my business, then people don't care as much.
100%. I asked Douglas that one time. I asked him. I said, "What do all of your attendees like? What is the main reason they come to Arival?" He was on the show one time, and like Douglas does it. He's very intentional about everything, which I love about him. But he like sat there for really, he's like, he like really thought of it, and then he came up with his ass. I was like, to make more money, dog. It's like they're all there to make more money, dude. It's a business conference. That's what we're all here.
That's for, what it is. It's a B2B 100%. Conference for this sector, and everyone that comes should be looking for that ROI, like we've said, and learn how to make more money, how to grow their business, and how to be effective, and efficient at doing it. Right? Yeah.
Greg, and it's real funny. I use my personal, and so this was like a little bit of marketing advice from a different network I was in, like, because I personally, sometimes I think I reach more people with from my personal Facebook page than I do any other channel. So a lot of times I post stuff to my personal Facebook page that it's like business related because I know I'm going to get more engagement from the people that I want to engage, because simply, a lot of people that might like click on a picture of my kid versus, comment on a post, they might be lurking in our group, but I actually have a little bit more reach on my personal page. And you said it, you touched on that like a hair, because like sometimes I want to like make like some, like a comment about how I feel about like current political stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I can't do that anymore. I can't. I gotta stay away from that stuff. Like in earlier episodes, I might have been a little faster than Greg to talk politics on the show, because Greg's always kind of like, I gotta remain like agnostic on all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah. And we've done like value-based businesses and stuff like that. But I think Arival probably, outside looking in, has leaned a little bit more into that. Not where you guys are like, flying political flags at your events or anything like that, but where you guys are a value-driven company. And you guys are like, you guys like definitely, and it's a lot different from my business to your business, but where would you say that plays into, or if that plays into your messaging for Arival?
Well, I mean, our values are posted on our website under the About Us section. And, we believe in a lot of, I don't even know the best way to answer that. I'm not sure I have the right answer to that. I guess I'm not super clear. I mean, yes, we're a value-driven. We want to care about everybody. We want to make sure we respect people's opinions, respect their rights, no matter who they are, what color they are, what sex they are. It doesn't affect our relationship with them as a business or a person. Whether they work for us, whether they're one of our clients, whether they're one of our partners, we just want to show equal respect to everybody.
That is a great answer. I think that's the answer we're looking for.
Okay. Well, there you go.
No, I mean, like, I feel like you said in Europe, like it's sustainability. I mean, like, and DEI, like they can be both like kind of they're touchy subjects. I know we've done content on it, and even in the one episode, I was like, I can't say that, and he's like, well, yeah, you can, and that's the problem. But
I do not feel that DEI is a touchy subject. I feel it's an critical subject, and somehow it's gotten politicized.
Yeah,
not sure why.
I don't know either. I'm not the foremost leader on any of this stuff other than my Twitter feed.
Yeah, and it's different, and it's political. It's become political. But saying in our company that we wouldn't be a promoter of diversity, equity, and inclusion,
right.
Like what do we want to change there?
Sure.
Yeah. So Bruce, we're coming to the end here. Is there anything you like? And I have the promo code. So if you made it to the end of this, I do have the promo code for you. So you get 15% off. The code is SD15XMP. Again, SD15XMP. You can also go to our Facebook page or Facebook group, and it's posted there if you forget. So that will
all caps. I think it's
all
case
caps.
Yeah.
Yep, all caps.
All caps, but no cap.
I would want to know, what's the selling point to coming to the port and Arrival, do you think?
So, yeah, we didn't even get to.
So Kevin,
to get on that.
I'll go for me, and Kevin might have a different answers to this, but here's the thing: when you go to Arrival, you're going to get a more deeper dive into the tech, what's trending in tech, OTAs. Now, we're going to touch upon those subjects lightly at the port, but at the port, it's going to be more of like specific trends in water sports. We're going to talk about regulations, insurance, some of the new type of activities we're seeing, such as the Tiki and Captain Experience. So we're going to deeper dive into that, where Arrival is going to give you a more general overview of what's trending in the tour and activity space. You're going to get a more heavy briefing of the tech side of things, which is rapidly changing. How OTAs are commoditizing activities and how you can stand
stand the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. That's
you sworn more than I have this episode.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
and that's something. I listened to enough of your shows to know I'm proud of that record today.
I mean, to me, like, one of the things that I'm going to want to learn more about in the next 12 months is how operators are able to stand out when OTAs are taking more and more market share from operators, and the platforms become literal. I mean, Google, with their AI, responses and searches, 60% of searches now don't even have a click. So more traffic is running through paid ads than ever right now. So how are small businesses getting direct bookings? How are they able to stand apart from that when platforms continue to dominate? And that's kind of where I'm hoping to find more answers, at Arrival, more so than port, because Arrival is going to have some of those big tech companies there to explain. So
I have a completely different answer. I come to Arrival to feel like an idiot. I feel like the dumbest guy in the room. So I go to the port, and I might be one of the smartest. I go to Arrival, and I am like bottom 5%. And I mean that in the best possible way, right? Because
but you're full of shit. You're full of shit.
I'm not, man. Like I've had more touch points with the corporate world at Arrival, and how some of these large corporations operate. And it's something that gets like somebody goes like, oh yeah, I want to have $100 million company. And I'm like, I couldn't touch the helm of $100 million company. And I think by going to Arrival and actually talking to some of these executives, some guys that actually do have MBAs, and not that there's any qualifier like, MBA versus college educated, somebody who started their own business. Taking a peek into that world and a peer behind that curtain and having conversations at the level that some of these guys are operating at, how smart they are, ahead of the curve that they are. The port is, you're going to be in a room with 100 to 150 of your peers, and you're going to have some detailed very specific, specified thing as it applies to water sports that you're going to want to know about. I think Arival touches the general landscape of business from all different sectors. Like we only have like, and some of the corporate guys like Chris Batchelor was probably, and he came from the Arival crowd. He came to our conference and spoke, but like selling your business, a 2-hour session on selling your business, a 2-hour session on the implications that AI has over the not just tourism and activities, but the broader spectrum of the entire business landscape, and to have those even longer conversations with those type of people post event or in these networking. I had an operator call me, and that's what he said. He was like, what advice would you give me to start $100 million business? I'd say first call a guy who's got $100 million business. You got the wrong guy. But there's guys in there that the helm of multi-billion, as Bruce said earlier, you're going to have executives from Disney. I think if you want to talk about growing your business or just growing business in general and what your goals and your pursuits are for the future, it's just I couldn't tell you like 3 years ago that I'd be like, oh, I'm like going to have a software company or whatever, and I'm the dumbest guy in that. Well, it's me and Steve, so he's edit that out. I don't want him hearing that. But yeah, but I wouldn't even have these kind of like ideas or leanings if I didn't get educated at Arival. And you guys are at an entire different level of education than what they're doing at the port. I definitely think it's both, because there might be something with insurance that really matters the most to you, or there might be something with, directly related to sales. I know you guys are doing some sales, some more sales stuff this year at Arival, but as it specifically pertains to water sports, you like have a conversation one-on-one with me, but you're going to go to Arival and you might have a lot of different aspirations and goals for your business outside of water sports, investing, what the economy looks like for travel in 2025 moving forward. Like, I think it's super cool that Netflix is getting experience. Like, you're not going to have that at the port. And also it's San Diego. I mean, San Diego is great. It's awesome. Like, I'm so excited. So, and I was going to say, I don't think it's going to cost you $4,000 to go there. It is San Diego. You could probably just sleep in a tent if you wanted to.
I want to qualify.
I'm waiting to get that one in.
I just have to qualify one thing.
Sure.
I don't know which event it was, and I think it was kind of last minute. We're looking for a really smart operator to join a panel in the Arival Theater on a very important like hot topic session, I think, at the end. And the person we were counting on or whoever wasn't there. So Douglas grabbed you and you got on stage in a hot topic session, probably with a leading OTA and a res tech, talk about what's going on. And you blew doors, man. You were awesome. Like, you're just, you're full of shit. I'm in the bottom 5%. No, you're one of the smartest operators out there.
I appreciate that.
With what you've been able to do with your business, and having someone like you and other operators that are listening who have done a great job with their own business, everyone has something to add, right? 100%. And that's the beauty of Arival, is that peer-to-peer learning. Everyone can learn from everyone, right? Yep. So it doesn't matter what who they are. I don't think there is a bottom 5%, right? And you're certainly not in it, Kevin.
Well, if it wouldn't be an AWG show if I didn't have at least a little bit of self-deprecating humor in it, Bruce. So it's part of my charm.
Well, we are at the end. And Bruce, just real quick, where do they go to? We told about the promo code, which you can rewind and get that code. Where do they get Arival?
Just Arival with one R. Arival is one R always. .travel.
Okay.
You go there.
If you're paying in cash, you can come see me personally. Mail me a sack of cash, and I promise that Arival will get it.
Do a wire transfer to Kevin. Or you can come to our site, navigate to San Diego registration page, and just pay with a credit card. And we do raise our rates probably 2 or 3 more times. It's part of our marketing strategy. So I don't know when the next price increase is, but
buy now.
But definitely buy now. As we all know, as conference organizers, we need to know how many people are coming, and usually people wait to the last minute. So that's why we raise our prices. That helps people register earlier than waiting to that last minute.
That's good.
Well, awesome, Bruce. Thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you a peek behind the curtains. It's been a pleasure working with you the last few years, and we look forward to the Arrival in San Diego.
And you guys are going to podcast from Arrival this year? Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Live or recorded? Probably recorded, right?
Probably recorded.
Yeah. I recorded. But I mean, we're going to be talking. We'll be talking more about that as we get closer, and Greg and I start brainstorming more on some of these topics that we're going to be talking about at the event. We got to do a little digging into the West Coast water sport market, man. I think they do things a little differently out there.
There's probably a few companies out there on that California coast and Hawaii.
Might be one or two.
Right. I would think. But always a pleasure, guys. Love working with you.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All right. For everyone listening, as always, keep it awkward.